in Canada. However, I am trained in psychiatry from India. I joined Apollo 7 years ago, and I've been working with motor vehicle accident patients since. And like Madison has already mentioned, I will be talking about three main agendas over the course of the meeting. I'll start by introducing Apollo, then I'll go over the science of cannabis, which is the major chunk of the presentation. And then towards the end, I'll also go over the Canadian cannabis regulations and insurance coverage. Apollo is Canada's leading cannabis clinic and research organization, helping thousands of Canadians gain access to medical cannabis. Our team of experts in medical cannabis include psychiatrists, anesthesiologists, pain specialists, nurse practitioners, and family physicians who have more than 30 years of combined clinical research experience. Our database has over 120,000 patients, and we have the ability to treat patients across the country through the virtual platforms. Who are our patients? Our patients range from pediatric age group all the way to geriatric. However, the majority of our patients are middle-aged people seeking treatment for pain and for insomnia. Our process starts with the patient completing an online triage questionnaire, which is followed by a virtual consultation with one of our HCPs or healthcare practitioners. Based on the medical condition and the discussion, the patient will receive a medical document, which is actually sent off to a licensed producer directly, which is followed by a full education with one of our patient care specialists. The patient care specialist also helps the patient with registration with the licensed producer. Then the patient would make an order and receive their medication, and Apollo offers ongoing support with product selection, dosage recommendations, and strain recommendations. This is what a medical document or a prescription for medical cannabis looks like. It'll have the patient's basic demographic details along with the physician's recommendations on THC levels, as well as the grams prescribed per day. You will notice here that there's no mention of particular products. Licensed producers actually have hundreds of products on their website, and that's where our patient care specialists do a lot of work helping them choose the right product based on the physician's recommendations. I've mentioned licensed producers a couple of times now. These are companies that are licensed by Health Canada. There's over 600 authorized licensed producers that are allowed to grow and sell medical cannabis. They must adhere to rigorous standards, and they can dispense medical cannabis to authorized patients only. And the only place to purchase medical cannabis is through a licensed producer's website, or you can do so over the phone once you are registered. I should repeat, there's no physical storefronts for licensed producers. The science of cannabis. Types of cannabinoids. Now, cannabinoids are molecules that act on cannabinoid receptors in the human body. There's two types of cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2. This comes as a surprise to most people. Our human body actually has endocannabinoids, which are naturally produced inside the body. One of those endocannabinoids is called anandamide. Phytocannabinoids occur naturally in the cannabis plant. There are hundreds, but CBD and THC are the most researched and recognized molecules. Synthetic cannabinoids are laboratory synthesized compounds that bind to the cannabinoid receptors. I'll talk more on that later. A trichome is the part of the plant that has the highest concentration of the phytocannabinoids. Some of the more relevant or more researched cannabinoids is CBD and THC. Talking about CBD, which is cannabidiol, it is the non-psychoactive component of the cannabis plant, meaning it does not give one the feeling of being high. It has anti-inflammatory, analgesic, neuroprotective, anti-nausea, anti-emetic, antipsychotic, anti-ischemic, anxiolytic, and anti-epileptiform properties. And just to repeat, it is non-psychoactive. THC is another notable cannabinoid, tetrahydrocannabinol. It has analgesic properties by acting on CB1 and CB2 receptors. It is a neuroprotective antioxidant molecule. It has powerful anti-inflammatory properties. It's a known muscle relaxant, antiemetic, appetite stimulating, helps with insomnia, and is the primary psychoactive component, meaning this is the component of cannabis that would have mind altering or psychoactive effects. Other notable cannabinoids, while there's hundreds of cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, there's more and more research coming up. CBG helps with anxiety, pain, infection control, and reduction of nausea. CBN helps with sleep, appetite stimulation, and inflammation reduction. Other than cannabinoids, the medical cannabis plant also contains aromatic compounds. These are often associated with cannabis as they're found in the higher concentration in the cannabis plant. However, they are present all throughout nature. Some of the common terpenes are myrcene, pinene, limonene, linalool, caryophyllene. It is the ratio of these different terpenes that gives certain therapeutic benefits to each strain. A strain could be called an indica strain if it has higher proportions of myrcene, which has more sedative properties. Limonene, as you'll see, is more uplifting and energizing. So if a strain has more limonene concentration, that particular strain is better for daytime. Entourage effect. This is really important to highlight here, and this is the reason why synthetic cannabinoids have not been very successful. It is because the therapeutic impact of the whole plant is greater than the sum of its single molecule parts. It is being discovered more and more that one cannabinoid will increase the receptor sensitivity for other cannabinoids. Same goes for terpenes and flavor-giving molecules. Moving on to methods of consumption. There's several different types of products that are available. The major categories would be soft gels and oils, flowers and vaporizers, topicals, edibles, and concentrates. Medications such as oils, capsules, and edibles are sort of the basis of the medical cannabis treatment plan. It is ingestible, so it's a very discrete, precise dosing, which is easy to use. There is usually a lead time of 1 to 2 hours before this medication takes effect. However, the effects are also longer lasting, which is the highlight of the oral medication. It is important to start at a low dose and go slow. And that's where Apollo's team is here to help patients sort of navigate the entire process. What would be the recommended dosage, how to gradually increase it. All of this is done under the recommendation of the physician. Vaporization or the inhalational route. These come usually in two formats. One as dry cannabis, which is basically the cannabis plant matter. The other is vaporizer cartridges or pens that come pre-filled with cannabis extract. The basic idea is that you're inhaling warm mist or vapor with the medical compounds loaded into the mist. Because you're inhaling it, it's going directly from your lungs into the bloodstream. It's faster acting. Some people even experience benefits within 5 minutes. However, the effects are also shorter lasting. So most patients would use a combination of oral and inhaled products based on their specific needs. Medical cannabinoids and the human body. I previously mentioned the CB1 and CB2 receptors. They're pretty much present all throughout the human body. However, CB1 receptors are predominantly found in the nervous system and the brain. CB2 receptors are mostly found in the peripheral organs, especially the immune cells. Another point of note here is THC has been shown to primarily act through CB1 and CB2. However, CBD primarily acts through CB2 receptors. Which brings us to the potential therapeutic uses. Medical cannabis is helpful for chronic pain, sleep issues, anxiety, cancer, brain injuries, fibromyalgia, migraines, endometriosis, arthritis, PTSD, neuropathic pain, stress, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, menopausal symptoms, and many more. Apollo's published research study was conducted over a 12-month duration with 751 chronic pain patients who were the participants. Over a duration of 12 months, it was noticed that there was a 43% reduction in the pain interference with daily activities, a 37% reduction in pain severity. If you were to think of a pain level of 9 out of 10, that going down to 5 or 6 out of a 10 was a significant improvement in terms of not only pain control, but overall quality of life improvement. There was a 95% drop in the oral morphine dosages, which is quite significant given the current opioid crisis. It's also important to discuss the potential side effects of cannabis. Some of the possible side effects include dizziness, dry mouth, drowsiness, anxiety, red eyes, fast pulse, low blood pressure, cognitive slowing. Some of the more rare side effects include panic attacks, paranoia, psychosis. Of note is that most of these side effects are THC related, or rather unregulated THC related. Also, to talk about the addiction potential of cannabis, on the screen you'll see common substances such as tobacco with a dependency potential of 32%, heroin has a dependency potential of 23%, cocaine 17%, alcohol 15%, cannabis 9%. This dependence potential further drops to 4% in those older than 25 years of age. A lot of the times, patients do use cannabis as a substitution. So cannabis is used to substitute prescription drugs in 66%, alcohol in 40%, and illicit drug usage in 26% of the patients that were studied in 2009 by Riemann et al. It was an anonymous self-report questionnaire study, and a lot of the patients were substituting their prescription drug usage, alcohol usage, and illicit drug usage with cannabis products. Since we are part of Bayer today, I wanted to talk a little bit in further details about the effects and mechanisms of action of medical cannabis in TBI patients. Let's talk
Brain
about,
injury.
pardon me?
Someone have a question?
I'll continue. CBD, in terms of its short-term effects in TBI, has anti-inflammatory, antioxidative, and neuroprotective effects. More long-term effects include stabilization of the blood-brain barrier and minimization of neuroinflammation, which would lead to symptom management of pain, mood, stress, and migraines. THC has dose-dependent effects. Short-term effects could increase or decrease inflammation. As mentioned, these are dose and time-dependent effects. It can dampen the pain signals in the CNS and peripheral nervous system. It can cause drowsiness, and it enhances BDNF and GDNF effects, which affects memory and learning. Symptom management would include pain, anxiety, sleep, and migraine management. One of the more prominent studies, if you would ever to research cannabis and TBI, it's Dent Neurological Institute study. This was conducted in 2018, I believe, which reviewed 66 concussion patients that were treated with medical cannabis. They found 80% reported improved sleep, and the quality of life in brain injury patient scores were significantly improved in medical cannabis users. 38% medical cannabis users reduced or stopped opioid usage compared to 13% on other meds for concussion symptom management. A more recent study from 2023 is highlighting CBD helps address cellular and biochemical changes in TBI by balancing brain signals, protecting the blood-brain barrier, improving blood flow, and reducing inflammation. It may reduce cognitive and physical symptoms of TBI and lessen pain sensitivity. CBD is generally well tolerated. However, there are also no double-blinded or randomized human trials at the moment, but there is a phase 2 trial underway to study CBD in TBI patients, and it's being compared with or without 9-delta THC. The trial is called Cannabinoids and Traumatic Brain Injury, a randomized controlled placebo-controlled trial, and the results are expected by December of this year. So that's something to keep an eye on. Overall, to summarize the effects and what to keep an eye on in TBI and medical cannabis, there is emerging evidence in support of CBD for use in symptom management in TBI patients. THC should be approached with caution as there is mixed scientific evidence. Medical cannabis should be considered in a multidisciplinary setting as an adjunct to symptom management. That's why it's very important that a healthcare practitioner is involved in each case so that they can analyze the risk benefit needs and weigh it for each patient based on their particular clinical scenario. Of important to mention is future research comparing the effects of various cannabinoids, terpenes, and aromatic compounds at various physiological and psychological levels is warranted. Moving on to the third part of the presentation, which is Canadian cannabis regulations. It all started, so to say, around 25 years ago in July 2001 with MMAR, which allowed self-grow or you could buy from the government. July 2013, the clause for self-grow was removed with the MMPR and a network of licensed producers was created. In 2016, in Allard versus Canada, the ACMPR reintroduced self-grow with a limit of 4 plants each household. 2018 is, as we'll all remember, recreational cannabis was introduced to the market, and 2019 October is when edibles were introduced into the medical and recreational market. A lot of the times people wonder what is the main difference between medical and recreational cannabis since there are recreational cannabis storefronts nearly in every plaza. So the main difference is medical cannabis is prescribed by a healthcare practitioner. Recreational cannabis is purchased either through the black market or through a licensed retailer. Medical cannabis is purchased only online or through phone calls, and it is delivered to the patient's residence. Recreational stores are in person or online. Personalized treatment plans with guidance on dosing, strain selection, and ongoing support can only be provided on the medical side. Recreational side is they're legally unable and are unqualified to give medical advice, strain, and dosing suggestions. The overall cost of medical cannabis is lower compared to recreational, which has a higher cost than medical, with excise tax of 10% or $1 per gram higher. Supply is primarily reserved for patients, especially when it comes to CBD and a combination of CBD THC products. Recreational stores mostly house THC-based products. And of course, when it comes to coverage, there's auto insurance, group benefits, and healthcare spending accounts that one could use to purchase and fund medical cannabis. However, that is not applicable for recreational cannabis. There's discounts of up to 30% for low income or disabled individuals. At the end of the day, medical cannabis is a tax deductible. I'll talk briefly about motor vehicle accidents and how Apollo can assist clients who've been in motor vehicle accidents and have open AB claims. We are registered with HCI and FISRA. We manage all the relevant paperwork, advocate for the patients. We take over the financial burden once the OCF 18 is approved, meaning once the OCF 18 is approved, the patient does not pay out of pocket. Apollo pays for the medication upfront, and then we invoice it to the insurance company. We collaborate with the patient's law firm, treatment providers, and support team. We provide clinical notes and records, focused future care cost reports, rebuttal letters, med-legal reports to support open benefits and/or tort claims. The OCF 18 covers the cost of the medication, instruction and support, medication management, and medical devices such as vaporizers, grinders, scales. To talk a little bit about private insurance coverage through extended health benefits, some insurers do cover cost of medical cannabis under group benefits, usually with strict criterias. Not all policies include cannabis coverage. Patients must confirm with the insurer. Coverage depends on the policy type. Insurer forms can be requested for an HCP to complete, but the HCP never guarantees approval. Medical cannabis may be eligible for coverage under the healthcare spending account, often with a dollar limit. Apollo can help patients as all appointments are free of charge. There's no referral required. We offer ongoing support via phone and email. We have pediatric to palliative care. We have a Canada-wide network, offer French and ASL services, and we have dedicated teams for veterans, long-term care patients, those in motor vehicle accidents, and those who require insurance coverage. You'll see on the screen our contact details, and that is the presentation concluded. I'm happy to answer any questions at all.
I will stop the recording.